Today I'm looking at the Moment Pro Camera app 2. And what I'm really interested in is the natural processing with the dynamic range enhancer, which is a new feature. So yeah, we're talking about photography. I did a recent video comparing my old iPhone 6s to my current iPhone 17 Pro Max. And of course, the newer phone is better in almost every way. However, when taking photos with the old one, they are not nearly as processed as the newer phone. Now, some people like that and some people don't. I tend to like less processing, so I liked the look of the older photos. Although shooting Pro RAW or RAW on the newer phones, you can get a similar look, but it is still being affected by Apple. And so when Moment released their new Pro Camera app, one of the big selling features was a more natural look. Now, I've covered the Moment app a lot. I used to use it all the time, especially for video. And their new version of the app, the Moment Pro Camera app 2, definitely has video features, and they're good. It reminds me a lot of the old app, but with a more updated, polished, modern UI. But I don't really use it for video, but I do for photo. Now, I'm not a professional photographer in any way, shape, or form. I am a professional filmmaker, but when it comes to photos, I typically just shoot auto and JPEG, although I do like shooting RAW depending on the job. And so on an iPhone, I'm typically just using the native camera app, but I do have third-party apps like from Halide or Reflex, and I also have Moment. So the point is, I'm not doing manual photography with an iPhone. I will with my traditional cameras, but with an iPhone, I'm pretty much shooting auto. But even when I'm shooting auto, I want to have just a little bit of control. All right, I've got a high contrast scene here, back of a house with clouds, sun coming in from the side, shadow side. What I would normally do is protect the highlights or find a happy medium between the shadows not being completely crunchy and the sky not being blown out. And for this first one, I'm shooting with standard Apple processing using HDR, and I'm on the 24mm. And so now we'll go to Pro RAW. And so with the standard iPhone and with Pro RAW, I can get 48 megapixel, which is great, which is really key. And since this is RAW, in theory, I should have more latitude in post-production. So here is Pro RAW, 48 megapixel, 4x3. And then they also have regular RAW. They call it fast, fair. And using the regular RAW, you get 12 megapixel, you don't get 48. Now here's what I really want to compare though, and that is shooting the natural mode. Right now, I've got the dynamic range enhancer, which is a new feature on off, but you've also got light, medium, and strong. And so I'm gonna go with off first. That is no additional enhancing. But one thing I wanna note is when you use this feature, you can only shoot 12 megapixel. Not the end of the world, but if you shot 48, it really does give you a lot more resolution and obviously range to reframe, etc. in post-production. Now we'll go to light, and this is what they recommend for everyday shooting, the light dynamic range enhancer. And so we'll hit that. And just because we're here, we'll do the medium. Hard to tell while I'm shooting right here what's really going on, but once I look at these on the computer, I'll be able to see, I hope. Now strong is in really contrasty situations. You could see what it was doing there when I hit that. I'll take that photo. And so I did adjust the exposure a little bit, and the lighting has changed just a little bit. Right now the sun has gone down, but I should be able to see what kind of dynamic range I get in post. And these are an extreme example, keep that in mind. The idea normally is you don't have to do a lot of color correction, but here I did. All right, first up, we'll just look at the standard iPhone, the HDR, and these are really designed to not need color correction. But as you can see that it is kind of overexposed. And so I'm in Photoshop right now and I'm using the raw filter color correction, which is what I use more times than not, even when something is not raw. And I just am hitting auto. I'm approaching this like a casual photographer because that's what I am. And so hitting auto does a pretty good job in here. And then from there, I'm just going to export. And now here is the one with no color correction. And then here it is with color correction. So really simple, but it looks really fake. Now here's Apple Pro RAW. Now Pro Raw, you have to color correct. What you're seeing here is just a preview. And what's cool, in the Moment app, you can actually export a raw preview. So it's just a compressed JPEG corrected to a normal look, so to speak. But I like that because normally you can't see raw when you're inside an editing app like Premiere Pro, etc. In a photo app, of course you can, that's where you work with them. And again, I'm in Photoshop and I'm using the raw camera filter. And you could do this in Lightroom or whatever else you want to use. And again, I'm just hitting auto and adjusting it from there. You can do whatever you want here. You have a lot of control in post, but you can see how the Pro Raw definitely held the highlights better and the shadows. You get a nice blend between the two. And so in high contrast scenes, spoiler alert, this is going to look the best. And you'll see once we get to the natural, how much work Apple is actually doing. It's pretty impressive. Even though you are shooting raw here, there is Apple processing going on. It's not a true raw. And so here's the preview again with no color correction. And then here is the color corrected version. So again, the sky holds well, you've got nice color. And while it looks a little bit fake, because there is processing going on, it's nothing like the HDR. This is much more believable. Now here's the raw from Moment. This again is the preview, just like I showed with Pro Raw. But then once you're in Photoshop, you can see how it really looks. Again, I'm just doing an auto, and auto within the raw camera filter color correction does pretty well. But one thing you'll notice on this, and I'm gonna highlight this in a second, is the trees go magenta, almost like it's chromatic aberration. It's just magenta fringing all around the leaves on the upper left-hand side. I don't really know why it's doing that. So it's something I need to explore, but interestingly, the preview that I exported out of Moment doesn't have it. Now the sky is blown out here, but the preview is clean. But when I go to the color corrected version, you can see the magenta came back into the leaves. And so here's the preview again. You can see that it's nice and clean. The sky is wrong because it's just a preview. So there's the color corrected version, and the color corrected version looks good as far as contrast ratio and highlights, but then you've got that magenta in the leaves. And just as a comparison to the raw, here's the Pro Raw, and you can see the Pro Raw held the green much better, but the Pro Raw actually looks a little bit softer. The sky is a little bit different color because the sun was moving around. So just something to be aware of. All right, now here is natural off. So this is just the natural image with no processing. And that is what it would look like if you weren't using all the Apple processing. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. So again, I'm using the raw camera filter in Photoshop, and I'm just hitting auto and then I'm adjusting it from there. But if you'll notice, the tree limbs are getting that weird magenta as well. So I think it must have something to do with the processing in the Moment app. I'm not sure, but it only really shows in these high contrast situations. So here's no color correction. And then here is color correction. And just to be clear, this natural off is not really designed for this kind of shot. I would use it in more normal shooting situations. And here is natural light. And this is what Moment recommends using for most everyday stuff. Same issues here though. This is a high contrast scene. You can see into the shadows a little bit better using light, but it's still pretty dark. But I did the auto settings. Now here's the non-color corrected version. And here is the color corrected version. And the sky holds really well. The sky looks good. The trees look good, but again, there's that magenta there. Now here's natural medium, and this is for more high contrast scenes, such as what we're shooting right here. You can see a lot more of the house. The sky holds pretty well. Again, doing the auto settings with a few tweaks within Photoshop. So here is the not color corrected, and here is the corrected. And again, it looks pretty good, except for the magenta in the trees. Now here's natural strong. If you were going to use natural in this situation, this is what you would probably do. You can definitely see more of the house without color correction, and the sky holds pretty well. And then here is no color correction, and there is correction. And the corrected one looks pretty good. The contrast levels look good, and the sky holds, minus that weird magenta in the trees. And now here they are compared, no color correction. You can see from one to the other, it slowly gets brighter on the building, which is what it's supposed to do. So that is actually working, and it looks pretty good. And what I mean is it looks real. Even though it's underexposed here on the building side, much better than the fake HDR look, especially once you color correct it. Now here they are side by side corrected. You'll see the same kind of pattern, but now, since they're corrected, they're not going to change as much. Ultimately, the strong looks the best, but when you compare it to Apple Pro Raw, there's no comparison. It's a little bit unfair because the sun was in a different spot, and so the colors pop a little bit more with Pro Raw. And then you got 48 megapixel versus 12 megapixel, but just the general contrast and image quality, at least in this lighting situation, in this example, look a lot better with Pro Raw. But they both look considerably better than the fake HDR. So what did we learn? Well, I would use the natural setting in more natural shooting situations, and there it can look really great. And I just want to stress that normally you don't have to do much color correction. The shots here were all very lightly touched, more or less straight out of the camera. And I really like the way they look. They don't have that iPhone vibe or the iPhone look, and that's really the whole point. Have you tried the new Moment Pro camera app? And if so, have you been using the natural settings? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.